Okay, good morning to everybody. Let's try this live stream again. What I wanted to say earlier is that one of the things I appreciate about social media, even though social media has so many negative effects on the world in general, is the ability to get unfiltered opinions about what people think about the economy, people on the ground, real business owners, and those who stand to lose things. A lot of people don't understand about Asian culture. I'm going to get into that after this video about saving face and the importance of maintaining an image. An image. Hold on one second. And that's very prevalent in many of these Asian cultures and many of these Asian societies. So let me hold on one second. There we go. Now we're good. So that's one of the advantages of social media. We can get unfiltered information quickly to us on a global perspective, especially with places with Facebook and other TikTok and other. Well, TikTok has this ban in that particular country to a certain extent. It's limited, basically. But in a communist country like China, you're never going to get the truth about what's really going on with their economy, with their society. And what happens is that when you're dealing with the American media, especially, obviously there's a political divide here in this country. There's tribalist politics everywhere in the world, but especially in America, you don't really get the information objectively because the news media today, they don't really report the news and let you think for yourself. They just tell you what you're supposed to be thinking. They tell you what you should think instead of just giving you the information and allowing you to make decisions on your own. Salute XL Pro, middle guy. Make sure you guys hit the like button coming in. So we really want to discuss this because a lot of times, many times, is individuals, especially from the academic sphere, economists from these universities, maybe these liberal, very hyper liberal campuses, or economics professors, they really want to see the downfall of Trump. It's what they really care about. So many of their opinions are biased based on political affiliation. I've been a registered independent for many years. Really, I only care about truth. And the truth of the matter is that there's a huge trade deficit with China. China benefits tremendously from the US consumer market. The issue with China is China doesn't play fairly. China does not play fair. China is dirty in terms of how it operates, its system in place. There's no real structure in place for any foreign nation or country to really, dispute its grievances, or if they've been ripped off, or some intellectual property's been stolen, or you can't go over there and file a claim in China and have success. You can't do that. You can do that here in America, but you can't do that over there. So the rule of law and all those things are, a huge factor. So what I care about is truth. And you're not going to get that just listening to these national media all the time. You're going to have to find, unscripted information sometimes on the internet. But social media has opened a portal for us to at least have some type of objective information that's not totally controlled by the narratives of these huge media companies. And one of these is one of the gentlemen that interests me the most is this gentleman here in China. And I don't know how long he's going to be around before they come and snatch him up, but that's a whole other story. Let's continue with this. Fair use. Let me add this to the stage. And this gentleman is going to come up and he's going to give an objective opinion of what's going on in the Chinese economy from in China without the media spin. Let's continue.
The Chinese citizen here explaining this as simply as one could.
这两天我实在是看不下去了，别扯什么加关。
Honestly, these past few days, I just can't stand it anymore. Stop talking about raising tariffs and standing strong, like it's some action movie. Trying to act tough is a fast track to self-destruction. Making money, that's the real deal. The US, 350 million people controls a third of the world's consumer market. You know what that means? Out of every $3 spent worldwide, one comes from an American wallet. The EU has 450 million people, but their spending power doesn't even come close to the US. We've got 1.4 billion people working our butts off making stuff, but our buying power is only a fifth of America's. The numbers are right there. Can cursing out the US for being a bully put food on your table? The dollars they're holding, that's the golden ticket in the global business world. Everyone's shouting, we don't need the US market. Wake up. You go sell in Southeast Asia, you're getting paid in Indonesian rupiah. Go to South America, it's pesos. The exchange rates will chop you up before you even get your money. But when you sell to America, you're getting paid in US dollars, spendable anywhere in the world. Look at the Russia-Ukraine war, all hell's broken loose, but the US dollar is still sitting pretty on the world's throne. That's reality. Step outside the dollar system and you don't even have a ticket to the international trade game. And don't give me that, let's shift to Africa, Asia, and Latin America talk either. Our African brothers, a lot of them don't even have reliable electricity. How are they going to buy your fancy appliances?
Fair use. He said they don't have. Anyhow, let's continue on. I had to stop because obviously I'm doing reaction, but let's continue.
India looks like a big market? Sure, but good luck getting paid. They'll drag it out till your business goes bankrupt. Only America, with its 300 plus million middle-class consumers, is standing there with open wallets. No scams, no delayed payments. Even with all the sanctions these past couple of years, it's still the cleanest market on earth. Compared to places where you have to deal with bribes and shakedowns, the US is like a business paradise. Here's the thing. Capital is 10,000 times smarter than you or me. Norway's sovereign wealth fund, Middle Eastern oil money, national pension funds from all over the world, they've all poured their cash into the US stock market. Don't you think those countries want to act tough too? But reality is, without the US, the world's biggest consumption engine, your products won't even get the chance to break even, let alone make a profit. Rely on Russia? Iran? Come on. They're barely staying alive by selling off their resources. It's easy to curse American hegemony. It's a lot harder to face reality. At the end of the day, the global supply chain boils down to one simple truth. Whoever holds the purchasing power holds the power, period. The US has 5% of the world's population, but controls a third of its consumption. That's absolute market dominance.
And what he's also not mentioning too is that before the big Walmarts and the big convenience stores out here, Americans, if you used to shop in the local community at their mom and pop store. I mean, I still stop by the local, like if I see like a farmer selling stuff on the side of the street or on the side of his the highway when I'm riding, heading south or wherever else, I will still stop and buy local products from these local markets. So America can always go back to local production and doing things here. But can China go back to where it used to be with the booming middle class? Well, now China's economy getting hit. The middle class that have adjusted their way of life to a Western standard. Can they go back? Especially people that have taken out loans and debts and whatever else. Are they willing to go back to where they were before? I mean, I don't know anybody out in the world that's really fighting hard to get their hands on some yen or whatever their currency is. They're not. But America can always go back to the local community, the local convenience store, small businesses and communities. That's not a difficult thing. It's just hard to do because everybody is so addicted to that cheap goods from China. It's like the crack cocaine. Or if you go to Walmart and buy some cheap stuff, even though it may last a year or two, but depends on the person, people are addicted to that. Like that's the only option here. So there's no real discipline or any type of determination to support the local mom and pop store or whatever. those are options for us. Let's continue on, but he's telling the truth. Let's continue on.
You can hate it all you want, but when 70% of your manufacturing depends on exports and 80% of your foreign reserves rely on trade, losing the US market is basically cutting off your own lifeline. For those shouting, "We'd rather not make money from America," listen up. Ordinary people need to eat. Companies need to pay salaries. The government needs foreign currency reserves. If you really want to play hardball with the US hurting each other in the process, who ends up losing? It's the workers on the assembly lines. It's the small business owners running factories. It's every regular person trying to make a living through exports. Trying to act tough in the face of overwhelming market power? That's just plain stupidity. If it's time to bow your head and negotiate, then bow your head. If it's time to cut profits, then cut profits. Right now, keeping your job is more important than anything else. I'm just a high school dropout, but even I know, in the business world, pride means nothing. Only supply and demand matter. You have no idea how sweet the American market is until you look at the real numbers. Instead of shouting slogans, better to figure out how to play by their rules and make money. Fill your pockets with US dollars first, then you can talk about upgrading industries or ditching the dollar. Otherwise, it's just nonsense. Bowing your head to make money? Nothing shameful about that. But gambling ordinary people's livelihoods just to save face? Now that's real stupidity. In my narrow opinion, if
Okay, what did he just say? Gambling everybody's let's get the statement real back. What did he just say?
Bowing your head to make money? Nothing shameful about that. But gambling ordinary people's livelihoods just to save face? Now that's real stupidity.
That's critical. Gambling away regular people's livelihood just to save face. And that's what the American people don't understand. They don't, it's a cultural disconnect, and I understand that. But that's what Jai is doing. There is no real leverage in this trade war. I mean, corporations stand to, lose a little bit of profits because they like that cheap labor that they get out of China. And obviously the China elite class is going to get crushed in terms of all of the money that they're going to be losing from running these companies where they get major profits and pay workers basically next to nothing. So inevitably, at the end of the day, when people start suffering, 1.4 billion people on this planet, that's a tremendous amount of resources that's needed to, sustain that society. Let's continue on.
In my narrow opinion, if making life better for regular people means we have to crawl to make money, then so be it.
哪怕跪着赚钱也没啥。
Now, as you guys can tell, a lot of these clips are in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese. So a lot of the translation come from this great channel, Inconvenient Truth, run by Jennifer Zhang. She does a great job exposing CCP's unfair and corrupt practices. But unfortunately, YouTube has decided to silence her, and that's why they demonetized her channel. So we wanted to show our support for her work. That's why if you guys can just take a second and go subscribe to her channel and tell her Business Basics sent you, I'm sure she would appreciate that tremendously. So I'll link the channel in the description and in the card above, and I highly recommend you go check her out. But moving on, one of the biggest issues that CCP is grappling with right now is the fact that China is the only country that's fighting with the United States. That means CCP is the only one that's going to be suffering the most. CCP really wanted all the other countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and India to put up a united front. And that's exactly why CCP started spreading this misinformation campaign, where they said that Japan and South Korea are actually partnering with China to respond to US tariffs. When in fact, both Japan and South Korea came out with an official statement saying that that's not a true story. They haven't even discussed this any single time. This is when many people started to realize and started putting pieces together. CCP wants other countries to stand alongside China to fight the US. And that's exactly why Xi Jinping just announced an emergency trip to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. But unfortunately for Xi, all these countries have agreed to negotiate with the United States already. So it doesn't look like this plan is going to work. But this is exactly why CCP is heavily pushing this type of propaganda on US social media. The same social media that Chinese citizens are not even allowed to use, but Chinese officials are using to push pro CCP propaganda. Here, watch it yourself.
The US triggered tariff storm sweeps the globe. Markets are in panic. The so-called global
So you understand that the whole effect of that, they limit the amount of social media their people can consume, watch, and even what they can put out into the world. Yeah. Well, in China particularly, is controlled by a lot of stuff is controlled by the Communist Party. So, you know, the only way you can kind of get some level of an objective opinion is many to some of these YouTube videos that come out. And especially here, like in America, the talking heads particular are going to focus, they're going to divert their opinion back to a political opinion to try and undermine the opposition, as opposed to telling the real truth and really sticking with Team America. So that's what it's really about. So it's crazy to think about it, because I watch some of this stuff and I'm like just shaking my head. I remember when Kevin O'Leary just blurted out and told the truth about what exactly is going on within China and all of the unfair practices that happen with the country. They just don't play fair, you know.
Beacon now puts America first. It slaps allies in the face, treats the world with predatory practices, and makes other countries pay for MAGA, pushing the fragile world economy over the edge and pitching itself against the whole world. With China here, the sky won't fall. With around 5% economic growth, China adds the output of a mid-sized European economy every year. China has hundreds of millions of skilled workers. Chinese people are well known for their strong work ethic. China's development over the past 7 decades is a result of self-reliance and hard work, not favors from others. China's technological innovation is full of vitality. From follower to leader, from made in China to created in China, every tech bottleneck is turned into a breakthrough. Foreign investors are bullish about China. Global businesses believe the next China is still China, and the best is yet to come. Openness.
Right. So this is the propaganda that they're putting out, right, to the world about China. This is what they present as their response. Again, a lot of it is saving face. So, which is interesting and funny, right? I was you go online. There's so many crazy AI generated videos that come out of you know, you see it on Twitter X all the time. You see it on social media. There we go. Really making fun. What's up, D? Salute to you, man. Oh, welcome to the chat. But there's so many, like, some of these videos. Let me remove this from the there's so many videos on social media making fun of America's labor, trying basically to manipulate things even on social media. But when you get the real gist of what's happening internally within that country, you know, that's something they don't want out. The guy that I just showed you, his opinion. So what they've been doing, hold on a second. hold on 1 second. So they've been basically getting on social media and sending out all these videos bombarding us with misinformation and propaganda, trying to sway the American people and break us in half down political lines, because they know that a large percentage of the population don't like Trump. So what they do is they attack that aspect of the culture, divide and conquer, through using the same social media that they have limited and banned in many instances in their country to influence the American population. But we have so many weak-minded folks that only look at things in the short term. The short term. The short term is they can't get what they want from Walmart at the price that they want it. They can't get what they want from Walmart at the price that they want it at. Like what was life before Walmart and Target and all these huge department stores where they can get their cheap goods and consumerist products and a bunch of stuff that end up in landfills anyhow in about a year or two. They can't get it in mass quantity at a cheap price. Like, how does society survive? Like, there wasn't communities before. There wasn't local mom and pop shops before. People couldn't figure out how to grow some stuff and produce some things on their own. And I know what they say, well, it's cheap, it's less expensive and whatever else. And where I said that link. So I see these conversations, most of them are political opinions for people. Many of them have never done business or anything else. Hold on, stand by for a second. And I'm glad what Kevin O'Leary said this, which was interesting, because he's actually a businessman and he understands how businesses work, as opposed to some political talking head or some anchor on CNN telling us how to think. Because everybody thinks about the short term. Nobody's thinking about the long term. And which is interesting, like that cheap crap you buy from Walmart is the begin all and make all, it's like, it's going to change. It's everything your life needs,
I do business in China.
Exactly.
They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that
I
look
want
like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals. And finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric. Finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China.
Right. Critical conversation right there. And the most important thing that he said is that I do business in China. So we're talking to the opinions of an actual businessman, and then the opinions of an actual Chinese citizen that I played in that earlier clip about how the trade wars are affecting China itself. So when you listen to these people talk, they don't even care about how this situation with trade affects Americans long-term effect of it. If it doesn't get them the political gains that they want, if they don't see the Democrats back in power and they got all this, they start talking about women's empowerment and DEA again and, LGBTQ rights and all these other things they want back. And they just want their ideology pushed, even at the expense of American prosperity in the long term. They only care about, let's get back to that stuff. Even though if America's, economy itself is suffering and we're building China and building their military and building their economy because of these unfair trade deals. And China's not playing by the rules of the WTO globally, going into many different cultures and countries and exploiting those cultures and countries. They don't care about that. They just want a somebody back in the seat of the presidency that represents their political agenda. That's all they care about. And even now, when you look at most of their agendas, is mostly highly socialist, especially with Sanders and AOC. No, the American people are not buying that. What do they want? You to pay 70% tax, 50% tax? How much money is enough coming out of your check that will satisfy them? It's crazy to think that. But a lot of people are missing the fact also that China has taken on a lot of, no, they won't. America will not lose this war. Absolutely not. America will definitely lose this war, whether it's hot war or economic. 1.6 billion united people against a fragmented U.S. population. It's not 1.6 billion people. They cannot. Again, can you explain? The communists cannot vote out. You can vote communism in, but you will have to fight a war to get them out. America will win. America will win. I don't think America will lose. We evidence of that. That's just more liberal propaganda. That's more liberal propaganda. The Chinese economy cannot sustain itself without the American money coming in at 39% of its GDP or whatever else. They're dependent on trading, on selling this cheap goods to the world, especially to America. That's a system that's highly communist. It's highly communist. When you talk about communism and the rule of law, it's very difficult to do business in China. The world can't do business in China. The world can do business in America. It can do business in Western Europe. The rules of engagement, the legal system, the rule of law allows for grievances, allows for some type of fair exchange of trade. China can only manufacture and export to the world. The Communist Party is not going to open up that society. And I think we think that we're comparing democratic, open society to a communist society. And we make that mistake in not understanding that there's a system in place to maintain power and control of the population that Western cultures don't have in place. And that alone is a handicap when it comes to negotiating and dealing with the world. What they do is when people create and make ideas, they steal it, they replicate it, it's sold back to the West, especially you see it on, that's all they do, really. So, and the culture itself, many of the culture itself has mimicked a lot of what a certain middle class in China has mimicked a lot of the American system. Even with their marriages and their dating and relationships, you see a higher rate of divorce in China, especially start happening with social media and a lot of the women getting into the middle class. So they're having a lot of social problems in China itself and economic problems too with the slowdown. I did videos about their dating and relationship market. So what we're getting right now is a lot of information in the American media from people who hate Trump. That's not fact-based. That's why when I started this stream, I gave the opinion of a Chinese man or Chinese individuals inside of China. Inside of China. Not the opinions of these news people. You know what I mean? And that's what matters the most. America will win this. It'll be painful. It will be painful. You know, it'll be a painful win. But I don't even think this is going to escalate to that point. I think inevitably America and China is going to sit down and they're going to hash out a trade agreement. The problem with that, even so, is that will the Chinese even live by that agreement? Because they're not exactly interested in following agreements and rules that, you know, they're not at 100% in control of. And that's the fundamental problem right now. So what you see is saving face. But when you look at the social media posts of what's going on actually on the ground in that society, you get to see the real hemorrhaging that's happening. It's hemorrhaging. You know, the worst thing that's going to happen to America, even with all the damages, is you might be forced to go and shop at the mom and pop store around the corner as opposed to going to Walmart. You know, in the short term, America is going to be punished. In the long term, China would fall off the cliff if they tried this. It's just, you know, I mean, it's just simple common sense and logic. It's just when your society depends, when you don't play by when you have a society, you know, in a communist system, in a communist structure, where the rule of law is really what they decide, it's very difficult to compete with a free capitalist society. You know, it's very difficult. And that's why the American dollar is respected. Because of the rule of law and the way the society operates. And that's powerful. And we had the Chinese businessmen really discuss this. We can't do businesses. What people don't understand is they assume that, and I know many of us who've traveled overseas, we understand that many times in some cultures, what people word is, like, people will say certain things to save face. They won't even mean what they're saying, but it, you know, like, it's part of the mentality. They don't want to be disagreeable in certain cultures. And I know a lot of Americans, when they live overseas, and all Asia too, is that you think that you're meeting that dude tomorrow at 12 o'clock, but he said the right things to save face. Come tomorrow, he don't even show up. Or you see an image of what success looks like, or you don't even know that the people that you were dealing with are not really even rich. They were like, I mean, we see it here in America some ways too, where people advertise and pretend to have a lifestyle that they don't really have. It is 10 times worse in Asia. Like I said, I was in northern Thailand for 4 months for my snowbird during the wintertime. We talk about phone show culture and saving face in these cultures. That's what they don't understand. He said the problem is too many Americans have never studied communism or talked to people who flee communism to go abroad. It's the ignorance. Absolutely. They don't understand how it works. Because everybody's used to this, all these rights and freedoms. And that's why they have so many people, these talking heads and their opinions. They don't understand how it works over there. You know, even in certain places, like even like a place like Thailand, if you go out on the media, like say you go to a business and you don't like the way that business is, and you go online running your mouth about that business, you'll get serious trouble and get locked up. And that's not something Americans understand. Everybody's used to due process, and they're used to freedom, the Fourth Amendment, and the rights, and the Fifth Amendment rights, and the 14th Amendment rights, and so on and so forth. Man, let me tell you something. It'd be your rights when they let you out of jail, due process and all that stuff. And even what Kevin O'Leary is talking about with the legal system, where does he fight? Where does he file his grievance after he's been ripped off in China? Where does he file his grievance? You think everybody's thinking in terms of the American system and the American way of doing things. And that's a problem too, because like I said, when people travel, they don't understand that, hey, this don't work the way you works in America. It don't work that way. And that's why with those people who survive and live overseas and whatever, when they make that adjustment, and when you understand the way things work, you almost have to, whatever. So they're not going to show you what's going. What we have now is basically posturing, saving face, and, promoting an image or a message of strength and power. We're not going to let this, nation oppress us in many ways. Like, I'll give you an example. We talk about it all the time. Let me move this from the stream. Let me give you an example. People will say, well, the side effects of feminism, as it is spread globally, and now in China, where a lot of women have taken on the mantle of strong and independent. The dating and relationship and marriage market in China, in China, first of all, the one-child policy was a huge problem. But look what's happening to their women, and look what's happening to their relationships in China. Let me add this to the stream. Would you ever believe that this is going on in China right now? Fair use.
And I am considered a leftover woman at this age. My life has become very difficult recently, and I feel lost. I don't know how I went from being a positive and optimistic girl to who I am now. In the past, I was always a kind and optimistic girl, doing my best to solve problems and face challenges with a positive attitude. But now, I have lost the courage to face problems, and I no longer have the ability to solve them. When faced with trouble, I can only cry, feeling helpless. Right now, I feel like I have no support, and there is no reliable man to depend on. In such a situation, I deeply feel that I am going through the hardest period of my life, even harder than when I was preparing for university entrance exams, because there are many things I just can't handle by myself. I think about my age and my current situation, and I feel both pathetic and sad. Recently, my emotions have been unstable, and mentally I feel very unsettled. So, I went to see a doctor, and I was diagnosed with mild depression, for which I need to take medication. My parents still don't know about my condition, and I don't dare tell them. So, I'm just staying in my room, lost in thought. I have lost interest in many things, and even in men. There is no reliable man around me. Could it be that something is wrong with me? I have decided to take good care of my body and mind, and follow the doctor's advice.
So, that's an example. So, in America, because we can't see inside of China, we don't know, like America, the average American man or whatever doesn't know that this, or women doesn't know that this same nonsense is going on. This going on at a tragic level inside of China, because we don't know what's going on in there in Chinese culture, because they have a saving face culture. But their dating and relationship market is hemorrhaging. Not only with their financial markets is hemorrhaging, their dating and relationship market is hemorrhaging. This is a single woman that nobody wants to be bothered with in that country, you know, and this is something that's not talked about. Let her continue on.
I once thought of myself as a superwoman, but now I feel like a useless person. Looking at myself at 38, having achieved nothing, I feel like a failure. I am confused about the future and don't know what to do. It feels like I'm at the lowest point in my life.
就是尽量在28岁以前把自己嫁出去吧。
I sincerely advise all women to get married as early as possible, ideally before the age of 28. Because once you pass 30, you will truly find that both the quality of your options and the number of men who are interested in you on the matchmaking market will decrease sharply. At this age, people begin to think you're getting older and start to lose their expectations for you. Many matchmakers no longer consider your actual compatibility but just try to pair you with any man, believing that you're too old to deserve a better one, and that just someone decent will do. The older you get, no matter how outstanding you are, the fewer choices you have. Unless you're extremely lucky and can marry a man you're completely satisfied with, otherwise, the men you meet are either from decent families but are unattractive and short, or they are decent looking but have poor financial conditions. Even worse, you might meet men who are divorced with children or divorced without children. In short, our options become very limited. Sometimes I truly don't understand why I've allowed myself to get to this age. I worked hard in my relationships, and I was very focused. I invested 100% of my energy in my career as well. Normally, hardworking people should be luckier, but I ended up with nothing and it feels like everything is against me. Over the years, I've kept giving myself positive affirmations, telling myself, everything happens for a reason. But after 5 years, I still don't know what I've been working toward. Now I'm 35, still not married. The older I get, the more urgently my parents push me, but they are also afraid of pressuring me too much. When they don't urge me to get married, they still get anxious, and it's making them sick. Sometimes, I comfort myself by telling myself not to rush, but the reality is, I can't ignore it. I'm already this old, and I know I still need to get married. I can't imagine being alone for the rest of my life, it scares me just to think about it. But when I take matchmaking seriously, the reality is, I truly don't find any suitable men around me. Everyone thinks I have high standards, but in fact, my standards are not high at all. I've cried, I've been sad, but after crying, I move on. Life still has to continue. When I don't have a partner, I still have to live my life well, work hard, earn money, and improve myself. Even so, deep down, I still long to find someone to spend my life with. So, my heartfelt advice to all the girls is, you must find a partner early, don't drag it out for too long, the earlier, the better.
我45岁了，未婚无啊，我跟你们说。
I'm 45 years old, and I'm still not married and don't have children. Now I deeply feel that, sisters, you should get married sooner, because women who don't get married...
So this is an addition to China's economic woes. A whole slew of leftover women that many of them are deeply in debt, especially with college debt, financial debt, no husband, have a hypergamous mindset because they're focused on their career. They've taken on a lot of Western ideology, and that's expensive lifestyle, expensive habits, expensive expectations. So we assume that America and American people are just the only one that's hooked on this consumer culture. Their consumer culture is on steroids. It's just that we can't see it like that. Because if you watch CNN or some of these other channels, all they care about is you know, one up in the other person or whoever's political ideology, and all of these professors and economic experts, they're all tribalists. They're all tribalists, especially the ones that have never done anything except college. They're all tribalists in their ideology and their opinions, not really telling the truth about what's going on in the society itself. So this is a crisis that's going on in China as we speak, along with their economic crisis. dating and relationships is the same thing. It's taking an L the same way it is over here. They talk about the men checking out over here. The men have checked out of China, like really checked. The men have checked the hell out in China. Divorces are high. It's crazy out there. They just don't understand it.
Married really have a tough time. At 45, I find that I no longer have any friends around me. They've all settled down, gotten married, and even had a second child, busy taking care of their husbands and children, while I'm left to live alone. In the mornings, I can only sleep in until I wake up naturally, and after work, I might go watch a movie by myself. It's really a lonely life. My friends, on the other hand, are all married and their daily lives are full and meaningful. They're busy taking their kids to various extracurricular classes, picking them up from school, and all of this makes me feel like I've missed out on so much. As for me, I often wander the streets alone, grab a cup of coffee, or find a place to take a few photos just to pass the time, especially during holidays, when others are with their families, having lively and happy times. I'm left to spend them alone in some unfamiliar place. Honestly, I don't want to go out, but being alone is just too boring. Apart from going out, it seems like I have no other choice. Sometimes I feel extremely lonely. I try to arrange gatherings with my friends, but they're all busy taking care of their husbands, children, or organizing family gatherings, or even tutoring their kids. And then there's me, with no family, no children, and no responsibilities. So I really wish my friends could come out and spend some time with me. Every time I see others gathering with their families, I realize just how lonely I am. This life really makes me feel.
So again, we're dealing with a country that's 1.4 billion. They're having their own social issues and economic issues internally. And a lot of it's because of basically they've westernized a lot of the ideology, a lot of that through social media. I did a live stream yesterday about the effects of social media on dating relationships globally. And when you take on that Western mentality and you start experiencing that, a little bit of that Western lifestyle, and start getting Western expectations, you can't go, it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back. And that's going to be a problem. And that's going to cause, civil unrest and problems when the economic strains is really felt deeper. You said cultures have evolved to protect women from themselves. Now left to their own devotion, de-evolution, we have no choice but to sit out and watch. That's a powerful statement. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Men have protected them, but they wanted to be, and you know what's crazy about it is part of the manipulation too, even with the women, is done with corporate greed, because corporations sponsor a lot of the feminist movement and whatever else, because obviously destabilizing the household and empowering women, because women do all the spending. Women shop. They spend money. But now that China's society is hemorrhaging, and the fact of all these modern women out here with all this debt, with this expensive taste and lifestyle, none of them are getting married. There's all kinds of internal problems going on because they've taken on a lot of Western ideology, a lot of it fed to them through this device. And now they're suffering, and again, corporate greed, indeed. But saving face, and people don't understand it. You have to, this is what I'm telling you, YouTube, the internet, if you get away from these major broadcasting corporations and whatever, BBC, CNN, all these other stuff, trying to tell you what you should think, and you go and you watch actual videos, and you see things from what's going on from the internal, then you come up with stuff like this. What's going on with her? She's 45. She ain't been married. And, it's crazy.
Feel very tough. My heart feels empty. And I really hope that all women won't easily give up on marriage and family, because being alone is just too hard.
我呢，今年38岁了，我现在一直
Hello everyone, I am 38 years old now. I'm currently a single woman, and I should be one of the first single women of my age in the village. Actually, there's another sister in our village who is the same age as me, 42, but she has already found a partner, a man from the neighboring village. When I saw the man she found, I was really shocked, and I felt a deep sense of regret. That day, when I saw her partner, I regretted so much. I regretted not getting married earlier, and I regretted letting my age reach 38 before starting to think about marriage. Especially now, when I see the man she found, I can't help but worry about myself, because, to be honest, the man she found is really very unattractive. But there's nothing she can do, she's already 42, and she has no choice but to settle for a man. What makes me even more helpless is that the man she found is also 42, has been divorced once, and has a child. Now, neither of them plans to have more children. So I keep thinking, why didn't I get married earlier? If I had married earlier, maybe now I could have had better options instead of being stuck in this situation. Nowadays, most of the matchmakers who introduce me to potential partners are over 40. The men who are somewhat better off are starting to worry about whether I can still have children. In their eyes, I'm already 38, and they think I don't deserve better options. In their eyes, at 38, I can only be with men who are less than ideal or even unattractive. Saying all this makes me feel so heavy-hearted, and I'm becoming more anxious and helpless. I really feel like crying. To be honest, the men who are somewhat better looking or have better conditions have already gotten married. Now, if I really want to get married, I might have to settle for someone with worse conditions, or even someone who isn't very good looking. But I don't want to settle, I don't want to compromise easily. I really want to find a man I like. So right now, I feel so confused, and my heart is full of regret.
As a girl born in 1990 from an ordinary family, now 34 years old, when I think back on the path I've walked, I really feel a bit foolish. Many years ago, I believed in all those so-called toxic self-help advice, thinking that girls should first...
Right. You hear what they said, right? They were listening to the same type of indoctrination that Western women were listening to. Because of this, in China, and everybody keeps thinking it's a global thing. Everything is global now. And access to information, ideologies. So she was listening to the same type of feminist indoctrination while she's in China, a communist country. So if you examine the mindsets and the mentality in China, a lot of people in the population, because of social media and proposal of information, have taken on a lot of Western ideologies and tried to live a Western lifestyle. And now we're seeing the effects of that hemorrhaging inside their own society and their own culture. And this is what you're not going to see on these big major broadcasting stations. Go on, let's continue.
Enrich themselves, take their time, and not rush, believing that one day...
Let me hear.
1990 from an ordinary family, now 34 years old. When I think back on the path I've walked, I really feel a bit foolish. Many years ago, I believed in all those so-called toxic self-help advice, thinking that girls should first enrich themselves, take their time, and not rush, believing that one day I would find a man who is not only wealthy but also handsome and considerate. In the end, reality gave me a hard slap in the face, and now I've become an older single woman. It was only in the past 2 years that I finally realized, as a girl with no background and no prestigious education, I can't afford to talk about ideals anymore. I must learn to make trade-offs. I especially want to tell young women now that girls like us, from ordinary backgrounds, must be rational in weighing our choices. We should not blindly pursue perfect conditions. When we choose a man, he will also choose us, so we must know what we truly need, instead of demanding everything from him. Recently, I talked to some friends who married well, and I realized they were actually very smart. They knew what they wanted, set clear standards, and then diligently pursued them. I have a friend who, when she was younger, was clear about her goals. She wanted to find a man with a house and a car, someone slightly better off. Her standards weren't high, She didn't require him to have an exceptional career, just good character, responsibility, and a fully paid house in the city. She started looking for a partner with these standards when she was young, and in the end, she found the right person. As for me, after my failed business venture, I went to study for a correspondence college degree and worked in sales. During this time, I thought I was strong and independent. I wanted to find a man who could lead me in my career, someone who was handsome, over 1.8 meters tall, and could provide emotional support behind the scenes. I also hoped he would have enough time to spend with me, understand my feelings, and take care of my emotions. But these demands didn't align with the reality of what men in real life wanted. Looking back now, I realize how naive my thinking was. Men with better careers often have greater ambitions, and it's hard for them to balance family and emotions. Yet, I was looking for such a perfect man. Even if such a perfect man did
So 1.8 meters is what, 5'9" tall, guys? That's about 5'8", 5'9", right? About 5'8", 5'9". I don't know how tall she is, but she hit the height requirement, 1.8 meters. So again, let's continue on. Let's hear what she has to say.
Exist, he would need to find a woman who could take care of the family, support him at home, and take care of the children. How could I be that person? Now, I feel like it's really difficult for me to get married. So, I especially want to advise those young women. Don't keep waiting for the perfect partner. Be clear about what you really want, understand yourself, and don't just keep demanding everything from others. It's better to be practical and grounded.
大龄女性的一些建议啊，首先这个年龄我们就以30岁为准吧。
For women over the age of 30, especially those who are unmarried and around 34 like me, I have some personal advice. First of all, at this age, our focus should no longer solely be on finding a man. You need to realize that what truly deserves your time and energy is how to make breakthroughs in your career and earn more money, rather than relying solely on marriage. For women, the greatest fear is not aging, but aging without having anything. As I mentioned before, at the age of 30, we need to adjust our mindset and approach. We can no longer see the high, rich, and handsome man falling in love with me as our goal. Sure, some women might be attracted to this fantasy, but you must understand that at this age, if you still hold on to this illusion, it is quite unrealistic and even a bit foolish. To be honest, at this age, there is an imbalance in the dating standards between men and women. For women like us, the so-called leftover women, our personal conditions are often already quite good. We may already own a house and our income is decent. We expect a man who is equally well off, and it is perfectly normal for us to want a man who earns a little more than we do. However, from a man's perspective, especially those who are financially successful and well established in their careers, they are generally more inclined to look for younger women. Why? Because they have cars, houses, and high incomes, some even earning tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands per year. Naturally, they want to find a young woman, especially one who is still single. They wonder why they would choose an older woman. No matter how you see it, men are naturally more attracted to younger women, especially when they have the option. Look at those rich and powerful men. Have they not seen the world? Don't they all choose wives much younger than themselves? This is the reality. Although it sounds vulgar, we must admit it. A man's dating preferences tend to favor youth, and this is not because they lack taste, but because it is in human nature. Also, at this age, if an exceptional man chooses you, it is often because you possess advantages that younger women do not have, such as your abilities, wealth, or networks. If you don't have these things, how will you compete with younger women? Sometimes, older women can also date younger men, but that requires money. If you don't have money, why would these younger men be interested in you? These younger men who seem willing to date older women are often drawn to them for their financial advantages. Regarding blind dates, I personally don't recommend that you get involved in the matchmaking market. Oftentimes, the people in this market are those who have been left behind, and they may even have some defects or flaws. If you go on a blind date, you may end up meeting men with very poor conditions. Out of 10 men, finding one who is decent is already a good outcome. Don't be fooled by the apparent vibrancy of the matchmaking market. Those men are not suitable for us, so women over 30 should definitely not try to find a man in the matchmaking.
It's bad, man. I mean, it is what it is. it is what it is, man. But that's where we're at. So all this posturing and all this stuff that's going on right now, I am positive. I am bullish on the market personally, especially for the young men. If they got like a 5-year perspective on investing, I mean, this is the best opportunity ever for the young men to get into the market if they don't need that money for a while. This will all balance out in time. I mean, it's just what it is. But I just wanted to give a glimpse. And like I said, it's it's tough. You know, it's a difficult situation. Again, they swallowed the pill of Western feminism and whatever else in their society. Also, there's an issue of inflation and whatever else. We see it in Japan, we see it in Korea, we see it in all these different countries. When they started deviating a lot from their traditional cultures and customs and swallowing that ideology, and obviously in the Chinese system as well, a lot of corporations and a lot of businesses have really created an environment. And you see the video we did last time, the collapse of the simp economy. They've created an environment where a bubble, basically boosting these women up, and only for them to come crashing down, you know, and not having any options in life in terms of marriage or serious long-term relationships. I'll let her finish out and we'll move on.
Market. Really, just don't go. As we reach middle age, we should focus on building our careers and becoming financially independent. Once we have money, we can occasionally enjoy a carefree relationship with some younger men to adjust our lives. If fate brings us the right person, that's wonderful, but don't rush into marriage, especially if you are not fully prepared. Nowadays, national policies are gradually supporting single women in raising children independently, which is far better than letting the child live with an unfit father. So rather than tying yourself to an unsuitable man, it's better to raise your child on your own and control the rhythm of your life. The advice I am giving is based on my personal experience and observations. I know that choosing marriage is important for every woman, and we must choose an excellent man to marry. It's great if we meet the right person, but if we haven't met him yet, that's fine. What matters most is that we can live better on our own.
This year, I am 39 years old, and through the process of arranged dating, I have gradually become aware of some issues. I remember when I was 26, a man I met through an arranged date told me that I was getting old because he believed that 25-year-old women were the most suitable for having children. Later, when I was in my 30s, other men said the same thing. One of them mentioned that he preferred to find a 27-year-old woman. It became clear to me that the problem might have started the moment I entered the arranged dating market. I had already lost. Often, people didn't view me based on my overall value, but instead, they measured me by the value of my womb, as if all they cared about was whether I could bear children for them, ignoring my other strengths. Over time, I came to realize that some men
But they measure men by the value of their wallets.
only paid attention to me when I met their needs. At this point, their conversations shifted to how I could help them solve some of their life problems, such as helping them handle their mortgage or paying off their loans. This type of interaction is essentially an exchange of resources. Because I am older, I must be clear about my bottom line, what kind of help I need. Sometimes, I feel that there's no need to exchange love for resources. If that's the case, it might be better to just be friends and help them out with money and tasks. I also gradually realized that women like me who are older tend to have a few different paths. The first type is those who lower their standards and end up with men who have no house or car, or may even have to contribute their own car and house to support them. The second type is those who are luckier and meet wealthy men who gained substantial wealth from original shares in listed companies and now live a stable life relying on their financial freedom. The third—
Look at that. Always talking about the money. At the end of the day, it's just what it is. I mean, women are naturally hypergamous anyhow, and that's a fact of life. But if you go right now, if you look at all of the live news broadcasts that's going on right now, it's the same thing. What a screw up Trump is, how Trump's this, and how America is collapsing under the trade wars. America this is the terrible decisions that Trump has made, you know, and he at least has the balls to do something about a government that is completely predatory in terms of its labor practices, in terms of its trade, in terms of its exploiting other countries, in terms of its, you know, they just don't play by the rules. You know, he said hypergamy is just female lust. I mean, it's natural for them, but the problem is, how realistic are they? The question becomes, is what's missing from the conversations many times with hypergamy is, what do the men that you want? And what do they value? And again, I mean, I understand from a corporate perspective of producing all the literature and all the things that, and saying all the things, or creating an environment that's highly gynocentric, because you want women to keep spending money. It really comes down to the money at the end of the day. Women spend. It's just the way it is. I mean, even now when I walk, you know, I walk through the mall or walk somewhere with a woman, I can't even go to Walmart. I can't even go to Target with a woman. They all in there. You know, I'm like, they got to stop like 20 times looking at things to buy. So there's a reason why they do so much manipulation on the women. It is a survival mechanism. I totally agree, Red Pill. I mean, it's just what it is. It's survival. It gets, you know, it gets, you know, but at the end of the day, women spend money. That's just the way it is. Women cost money, women spend money. And so they're thinking in terms of their own survival and whatever else, based on a standard. Remember, they're looking and they're seeing Western standards, Western women, Western whatever. We have a situation, the old versus the new, where there's a cultural collision between the old and the new in that society. And again, mimicking that of social media, so much misinformation on social media, so much pandering and lies. They think that the panda bear community is just here in America. No, they get pandered to heavily over there. So delusion becomes the new thing. And I always say, in terms of dating and relationships and whatever else, it's not just they talk about the gender wars. It's not a man versus woman thing. It's a man versus delusion. It's a man versus crazy. It's a man versus somebody that lives in an alternative universe. You know, and that's, you know, their own nature's coming out, it's unchecked. And again, keep them spending money. That's really what it comes down to. Even if it doesn't benefit their long-term interests, even if you don't tell them the truth. But the problem that they didn't consider is that, what if the men check out? What if the men check out? And what's not reporting is, in the Chinese society, a large percentage of the men have checked out. Just like here in America, unfortunately. So with that being said, let me remove this from the stream. I wanted to basically have that topic. And how you pronounce his name, Xi Jinping, he's doing what he has to do to save face with that culture, with that society, to maintain his position atop the Communist Party. It's not something that, well, here's what their strategy is. Really, it's the attack on the mindset and the mentality of weak-minded American people or liberal-minded American people. And it's really, which is funny, right? Because remember when this is their strategy. You know, this is their strategy. Like, This stuff is crazy, right? If you look at this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this on social media, right? Where they have played this clip, basically mocking America, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta mute that. You've seen this clip, right? And the guy like pulls a burger out of the thing. And like that's their attack, right? Look, I mean, it's crazy, right? Where did he get the burger from? Oh, wow. It just shows what jerks they are. That's all. I mean, you know, I mean, come on, man. Only a fool would fall for that nonsense. These are pump fakes. You know, these are pump fakes. Everybody's, you know, they're not trying, they cannot. The Chinese economy is hemorrhaging from within. They got a problem with a whole bunch of leftover women that they're going to have to find some way to take care of these people. The population is heavily in debt and struggling. Communist situation. The rule of law does not apply. You're not going to be able to take your grievance to the Chinese court. If they steal your intellectual property or they steal whatever technology you have created, duplicated, selling on Alibaba, or whatever the hell they do. It's an unfair game. They have played a dirty game. And finally, you know, Trump is the only one that has the balls to stand up to them. This is not a situation where they can go for the distance. What they do is, again, you see, I'm not into this political stuff. They take a bunch of liberal-minded individuals who hate this guy that would even vote for China. They like take the side of China against their own country, against their own interests long term, against the American people, because they want their ideologies back in place. They want to get back to talking about that crazy, ridiculous, far left things that nobody cares about. Exactly. You nailed it. Communism doesn't create, they steal and replicate. That's a disadvantage. The rule of law, the civilized society. Where are you going to put your money? If you had to put your money into a banking system right now, where are you going to put it into? China or Western Europe and America? You're going to put it into the American banking system. If you had to invest money, you're going to invest it in the American markets. You're not going to invest it in China. You can't really. I think you could only own like 49% of some corporate business. You have to have a Chinese partner to invest in China. You can't just come there and you say you're going to just come and start a company in China in a free market system in China. There's no free market system. You better have some, I mean, it's like a communist version of capitalism. You have to have partners to do that. And you have to understand how that system works. It's like when people open a business in many different countries, you know, especially Asian countries, you know, or even own land or buy a house in many of these places. You may be able to you may be able to buy a condo, but you can't own no ground, the actual land. And you might be able to be a 49% owner in a business, but that Chinese person has to own 51% or more. And everything that has to be done business-wise has to be done through their way of doing things. You know, and if you get ripped off, good luck taking that to court, you know, in that system. You think they're so nationalistic? You think they're going to take your side? No, you're just going to be out of your money. So that's what you have to face. It's not unfair arrangement. They can come over here, start businesses, create businesses and whatever else. You know, a lot of people invest in our markets because of free market capitalism. You know, maybe Milton Friedman was right. Milton Friedman was right. America can buy goods and services from everybody. I'm sure they're lining up at the White House right now to make trade deals with America. America can buy goods and services from everywhere. Anybody, because of the respect of the American dollar. America can also create its own things. You know, before there was Walmart, before there was, well, Kmart's going out of business in many areas, there was the mom and pop business. So the way I see this long term, I think inevitably this is a great opportunity for the young men, young people, especially the young men, to get into the market at a reasonable price. And in the next 5 years or so, when all this stuff, you know, simmers down, they're going to be looking pretty in terms of their own investment, making money, getting tremendous amount of growth, you know, in terms of that, especially the young men. Getting into the market, investing, getting huge gains. I mean, I look at Apple stock. Apple is down. It was like 2 something. If you look at Apple, I don't think Apple's going anywhere. Where we at with Apple? I'm not giving financial advice. Let's see where we at. Oh man, it's going up right now. It's like, look, I see a lot of green here. But if you look at these companies, you know, I mean, you look at the averages on that Apple stock. Let's go with the 6 month. Year to date, okay? I mean, you look at these numbers on that stock. I mean, Apple already split. So we're at where? Here we go. 247.0, 247 and $247 basically, and 4 cents. So I mean, look at how that price is going down with the Apple stock. We're at 198 or whatever. I mean, come on, man. Apple is not going anywhere. And they're just not going anywhere. And we can get products from anywhere in the world. The best economy in the world can get people to do things, build things, create things anywhere in the world. So this is a pump fake. And at the end of the day, I think the people that are smart enough to really take advantage of the situation is going to make huge profits going forward. In fact, I'm about to get ready for the opening of the market. And with that being said, you guys hit the like button. If you want to support the channel, please do. But in about 30 minutes, it's time to get to business. So peace and blessings to you guys. Appreciate you supporting the channel. And I'm out.